Thank you, Ellen. Good morning. May this morning initiate us into the culture of encounter. May our listening and conversations heighten and deepen our encounters. The transformation that can happen when we not just pass another, but stop with them, listen to, and understand their joys and hopes, sorrows, and anxieties. That we can know the dreams and also the fundamental problems and issues that keep people up at night. As women of faith, may we name and mourn the suffering and injustice, yet know that God is present as the liberating midwife in the midst of the suffering and despair of our times. As women of faith, may we see how in our encounters that our task today is to help the midwife who today is giving birth to a new people. Amen.
Little labyrinth here. Good morning. It's wonderful to see everyone. We're coming kind of out of COVID, and our theme is the culture of encounter. A moment of background, it was discerned by 5 team members, and it just sounded right for our times. Last year, it was care for the earth. And that was the underpinning, the template for all of our speakers last year. This year, the theme of the culture of encounter is the template or the underpinning of every speaker that will be coming to us. Each of them has been a woman who has encountered something new. It could be gun violence. It could be the Psalms in a new way. In Anne's case here, it will be working with us with Joanna Macy's process in terms of what we are experiencing in life. It could be dealing with the Christian nationalism that is in the church. Each of these women is going to show us how they have encountered and giving us kind of a template to go through it. The second part is Midwives of Change, and I'll speak to that later. Coincidentally, the culture of encounter echoes the encyclical of Pope Francis, which he wrote on social friendship. And surely do you remember at the beginning of the pandemic, seeing him on TV, alone in the hard falling rain, walking up the piazza alone, holding a gold monstrance, interceding for all of humanity about the plague of the coronavirus? Surely you remember. He wrote the encyclical Fratelli Tutti on fraternity and social friendship in the ensuing months. He was already working on it when the virus came. And surely the themes of encounter, of social encounter, was sharpened by the coronavirus. He calls it the practice of encounter, the practice. He calls it the art of encounter. So if it's an art, if it's a practice, it's something we learn to do. In the 8 chapters, he takes up topics that you and I perhaps never expected to be part of the 21st century. Did we ever expect our country, our church, our world to be so polarized? No. Did we expect that our times would be so violent? That there was so many crazy narratives going out, that human rights are being chipped away, that democracy is unraveling, that there are false narratives shaping the airways, shaping people's minds and hearts? This is where the art of encounter or the culture of encounter comes in. I am not going to speak on the 8 chapters. with the 288 footnotes of the encyclical. You can tell I've got an academic background. I'm going to just say something about chapter 6. I'm actually going to use it as a starting off point and move forward with it. And I'm going to give you 4 points. First of all, I want to say we often think of an encounter just as a meeting between two people, don't we? I want you to think of encounter as something more than just two people, but that's how we're going to begin the event. Understand an encounter is also with something larger. It can be an encounter with any invitation, any situation, a trauma, a moment of beauty, an encounter with the world we live in, an experience of God, a challenge. So 4 points. Francis does say, there is always movement and encounter. If we stand still, we never meet. Oh, that's pretty obvious. Second, two people encountering one another involves an action. It involves a give and a take. So meeting someone else can be a wonderful surprise, a wonderful joy, a wonderful delight. But what about meeting a person that brings frustration and anger and resentment? In that kind of encounter, there's things we need to face about ourselves, no? Something we learn about ourselves. We learn about the other. I mean, there are certainly people I'm like hesitant to encounter, different really ideologies. But encounter is a call. It's an invitation. Francis doesn't say this in the encyclical, but there are 4 virtues that come through in an encounter. Humility. I'm not always right. Well, humility. Generosity of spirit. Being realistic and patient. And the 5th one that's underpinning everything is kindness. He calls kindness the shining light, the shining star in our dark times. So there's encounter always involves movement. Second, two people encountering one another involves action, a give and a take. And third, more importantly, an encounter involves an openness to a relationship and to mystery. And this is where, as women of faith, we might look at encounters differently than other people may. An encounter between two people is a graced experience. It's one in which we realize the paradox that we find a wonderful connection between another person, but we really are very different from one another. But that's part of the mystery, that there is an encounter, a connectivity. We also know in an encounter, we meet someone over and over, and those of us who've been in or are in marriages know, or in any kind of friendship, you know, you keep learning more about the depth of the other person, don't you? You keep learning more, you learn more in your mind, your heart. And so we continue, an encounter continues to reveal its depth to us. And in a Christian theology, an encounter is between two persons and the presence of God in the encounter. So there's a mystery here in an encounter that we are called to, or that we face. I'm also going to suggest, when you encounter someone else in any kind of dialogue, because he's really talking about the importance of dialogue, what Bakhtin says is we have a surplus of seeing. When you meet someone and you encounter, you leave that encounter with a wider vision. You understand something more. And he says, out of that comes a creative understanding. But we return to our place, the same person that we are. Francis seemed to understand also that our times require us to reach out. To foster dialogue and friendship outside of our usual circles. And actually, Women in Conversation is making very efforts to connect with grads, UC grads. So we may be seeing that happen. We're trying to reach out to new people too. To make an intentional effort to meet people who are neglected or ignored in the wider world. And I know, and you probably do too, when you, liberation theology taught us that the poor save us, the poor evangelize us. And so we really need to learn and encounter with the marginalized. And I'm thinking of the earth too in this case. So there's movement and encounter, 1. 2, people encounter one another. There's a give and a take. 3, it involves an openness to a relationship and to mystery. And 4, understand encounter as something larger than meeting between 2 people. It can be any situation, a trauma, a sense of beauty, the world we live in, as I said, an experience of God. Francis understands or sees the culture of encounter as restructuring all of society. And I said I'm only speaking to one idea out of 8 chapters. But he speaks about the UN, he speaks about technology, he speaks about all structures in our society. If we build it on encountering one another through dialogue, we can create a new society in the face of the walls that are being constructed, in the face of barriers that are being set up between nations, that he sees the encounter with the other as a place of mystery. And I'm going to end this by saying, this is why, quoting him, we need a culture of encounter because, quote, we the people, we women, should be passionate about meeting others. A lot of extroverts in this room and introverts too, but we do like to converse, whatever we are. We should be passionate about meeting others, seeking points of contact. Where can we touch base with each other? Building bridges. And he says, planning a project that includes everyone. So I want to suggest that this is the template. You can internalize stepping out, moving, interacting with another person, with a relationship, knowing there's giving and taking, that there will be a transformation, there'll be experience of God and of love for one another within this encounter. And it is in the encounter, it also builds structures a more loving kind. This is, I think, our work as women of the kingdom. I think this is a work we need to do. And in the next few hours, I think we will have encounters in which we will experience all 4 of those steps. So thank you. I'm going to leave soon, but I will be popping up a lot today. I'm sorry, but it's just the way it's structured. I am so excited to reintroduce Anne. How many of you were here in May? So a lot of you know her. So she said, please don't give the long introduction again. So I won't. But I will say, and first of all, to the woman who said, I heard the speaker will be like she'd be a really interesting speaker. So I don't think you'll be disappointed. And Anne is certainly a midwife of many projects. And I also want to say, Anne and I were pregnant with our first daughters together. We're now 35, our daughters. And we shared our early pregnancies together. We had house church for about 5 years together. And Anne had all of her children through midwives. I did too. So it's very much part of our friendship. And that's what's really so beautiful. Anne also is a lay Franciscan with her husband. So it really shapes her perception of life and the activity that she does in the world. Very briefly, I'm going to just remind you that at 19, she left Holy Names College and went to the Catholic Work in New York City. Pretty brave, gutsy woman at that age, or bored with school, I don't know. But it was there that she really understood the importance of nonviolence, the importance of community. And at that point, she knew she wanted to give her life to the service of the poor. So here she is, decades later. Not only is she giving her life to the poor, but she is cultivating a community and many communities to do the same. So she started a Catholic worker in Oakland. For 25 years, she worked with the friars in Oakland, or actually all of California, I believe, and she was a co-director of their Justice and Peace Integrity of Creation project. So she was midwifing the brothers, I suspect, into justice. Anne also began to feel a call towards civil disobedience, and she'd been involved for years at the Nevada test site. And again, communities of people have accompanied her in the Stations of the Cross and protest against the nuclear weapons. And more recently, I can't say how many years, she started Canticle Farm, which I think some of you have visited already and are welcome to visit. It is a community of her family. It's a community of many people in the neighborhood. And she has a home there for men who have been in solitary confinement in San Quentin who are coming out, and recently purchased property, and probably the first time anyone gave property to the Ohlone people. Turning back. So she's really committed to all these different stages and changes of her life. So I'm not going to say anything more on Anne, except what she does, she's working with Joanna Macy as her assistant and travels internationally with Joanna. So with that background, I'm going to turn it over to Anne, and Anne and I are going to be working a little bit together in the process. So please welcome Anne.
Thank you, Jean. That was the short version. I have to say, if I ever start to feel bad about myself, I know who to call, right? I feel so, it's amazing to have someone kind of reflect back your life, right? You know, so thank you. And I'm so honored to be back among you, and hi everyone on Zoom. Thank you for inviting me back. I want to sing for a minute with you, right? So I'll sing this through once, and then we'll do call and response. And this is a song about what we'll be doing together today. I'm gonna let life move me. I'm gonna let life stir me deep. I'm gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep. I'm gonna laugh all my laughter. I'm gonna cry all my tears. I'm gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. So we'll do call and response. I'm gonna let's say we're gonna let life move us. We're gonna let life move us. We're gonna let life stir us deep. We're gonna let life stir us deep. We're gonna let life wake us from an ancient sleep. We're gonna let life wake us from an ancient sleep. We're gonna laugh all our laughter. We're gonna laugh all our laughter. We're gonna cry all our tears. We're gonna cry all our tears. We're gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. We're gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Oh, wonderful. That was beautiful. Thank you. Do you want to do that today together? Well, I have just the way to do that. So I have the great privilege of working with Joanna Macy. She lives right down the corner. She's 93 years old, still working at 93. So I get to still be assisting her in that. But for many years, I've been facilitating her work, which is called the work that reconnects. We're going to do a little bit of that today. And it can be done in an hour, in a weekend, in a 10-day. We used to do 10-day intensives. There were even some 30-day intensives. And it moves this work around what's called the spiral of the work that reconnects. And as Joanna was doing this work, this group work over years, she started to notice that there was this movement. She first began to bring people together to hear their own voice around nuclear waste way back in the 70s, and discovered that there was a way that the groups would move through things when we were allowed to actually be with our feelings of fear and outrage and grief for what's happening to our planet and our people. And so that this work has been known for that, especially for, it's been called despair work. The key here is that rather than think we can't be with our pain and we have to push it aside, or it gets pathologized, or we think we have to be strong or whatever, it's the thing from the song, right? That we're gonna laugh all our laughter and cry all our tears, because our tears are our love. We only grieve what we love. And so the way we ground ourselves to be able to do that is we start with gratitude. And we have 4 altars here to with symbols to help us just remember where we are in the spiral. So what's going to happen is you're going to pair up. We're going to do some dialogues with each other where one person speaks, the other one listens, and then you'll switch on topics relating to each of these 4 parts of the spiral. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the movement again. So over here we have some flowers from my garden and some passion fruit and figs and some tomatoes. I set out to pick a bouquet of flowers and I literally could hardly find anything. By the time I was finished, I did find a little bouquet, but I thought, oh my gosh, everything out here is basically looking very autumnal and there's nothing to pick. So I thought, well, but there's fruit. So that's there for people to taste and to experience, because our gratitude is something that we experience. We know how it feels to be just awash in gratitude. And it's also something that we can choose. If we're not feeling it, we can choose to put our attention there. And that's very key, because it helps us to then, when we can be in a stance of gratitude, it helps us then to move to honoring our pain for the world. And the pain is coming at us all the time now, right? Especially in a world where we're so interconnected through the internet and all the rest of it. We have the capacity and ability to know about the suffering of our planet and our people quite quickly, and it can be very overwhelming. Anybody feel overwhelmed by the bad news? Yeah, and it can feel like we have to close ourselves off from it, but we actually can't close ourselves off from it. We may think that we have closed ourselves, but it's living in our bodies. It's living in our experience. And the symbols here are from an experiential practice we do in this work when we have more time, called the Truth Mandala. And in that practice, we use these 4 symbols. The leaves help us be in touch with our grief for what's happening to our world, to our people. And we know we only grieve what we love. It's the flip side of our love, our grief. The empty bowl helps us to be with uncertainty, with our powerlessness, our emptiness, with our we don't know what to do. We don't know how to respond, and just be with that experience, because we know that something new can arise. Things emerge that we cannot plan or predict. The stick we use to hold and feel its strength with our anger and frustration and rage that's arising. And what's happening all around us as systems unravel. And we know that our outrage and our fury is our passion for justice. We want to see justice. We want it now. It's been so long. And it's getting seemingly worse rather than better on so many fronts. And the stone we use to help us be with our fear, because when we get afraid, we can feel like our hearts can become like stones. But we know that our fear actually opens us up to stand in courage, to do the thing that we're here to do. So coming from gratitude allows us to honor our pain for the world. And we find that when we are with that experience and let it move through us, it takes us to a place that we couldn't really imagine. We find ourselves seeing with new eyes. So there's a bowl of water there because we can be renewed and refreshed and find ourselves actually invigorated to act on behalf of life. So coming from gratitude, seeing with new eyes, coming from gratitude, honoring our pain for the world, seeing with new eyes, and then from that place going forth. So we go forth to act on behalf of life. Can the people on Zoom see the altars or not? Okay, well, I guess I have been describing them. So on the last one here, we have a candle, a single candle, and I love using that as a symbol for going forth, because even in the darkest night, the light of a single candle can help us to take the next step. And that's all we're ever asked to do as we go forth to act on behalf of life. It can feel very overwhelming, but all we ever are asked to do and can do toward any big vision, or just even toward uncertainty and not knowing, is just put one foot in front of the other and take the next step. And no matter how dark it is, one candle can help us to do that. And then we just keep going. And I also have some cards there that you're going to be invited to take with you. They have the spiral on them. It was painted by a young woman at a 10-day intensive and then given to Joanna. And we made little cards, and there on the back are the 5 vows that if you feel like it's something you want to do in your life as you are moving through this year of encounter, or as a way to embody your commitment to work on behalf of life, you're welcome to take one of those. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to have people, I think there is an even number if you stay out, but that might not be the case. When I'm going to invite people, I'm going to give you the instructions right now. And I need people to get into pairs. So hopefully there's a chair here. If you're on a couch, maybe you can just turn to the person who's there. If you're in a chair, you can pull together 2 chairs, and then here's one right here that somebody could take. So find a partner, identify your partner. Okay. I think. Okay. Is there anyone who doesn't have a partner? Okay. Maybe G. I can, okay. Raise your hand if you're looking for a partner. Okay. I don't, okay. Does it look like everybody's paired up? Okay. And you're going to go with, what's that? Yes. Hold on. I was going to give the instructions first. Okay. I think everybody, do you need a chair? Oh, okay. Okay. Everyone's set. Okay. Perfect. So the way this is going to work, quickly decide between the 2 of you who will be partner A, maybe the person with the shortest hair. Sometimes that's the easiest thing to or just figure it out, right? I said that once into a big group of 1,000 people, and the guys right in front of me, they were both bald. So, okay, raise your hand if you're partner A. Okay, great. Okay, so all that means is you get to be the brave one to go first. Okay. And I want to say this is not a conversation, and you'll be relieved to know that. You can have a conversation later, but the point of this exercise is to be fully able to speak without being interrupted, and to be fully able to listen without having to worry about what you might say or comment. So now that doesn't, it means you don't talk when you're listening, but you can certainly go, and use expression. It's not that you're not supposed to be engaged. In fact, you're really showing up to give your partner a really significant gift, which is the gift of listening with your full presence. Oh, no questions at all. Yeah, thanks for that. And then partner B will be listening, and then it will be your turn, partner A, to speak and partner A, you will listen. And I will be guiding you and giving you the question again. So you don't have to remember anything except if you're A or B. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do then, Jean and I, it was really fun. We've known each other for more than 40 years, right? We go back that long. And so we're doing this together, and we are using Psalm 22 to move around the spiral. So at each of these points, Jean is going to read a part of Psalm 22 as we begin, and then I will give you the sentence. Okay, are there any questions about the instructions?
Yeah.
Okay. And I will be ringing a bell. It's only going to be about 2 minutes because we're just giving a taste here. But in those 2 minutes, just really try to let yourself speak to whatever is coming up for you. And I will ring a bell, and you don't have to stop right in the middle of your sentence. Just finish your sentence, and then we'll switch. Okay. All right. So go ahead. Jean will bring us in, coming from gratitude.
Thank you. We have chosen Psalm 22 because the psalmist is in despair. The psalmist cannot find a way out of her problem. But if we turn to the psalm, we will see that there is a process that mirrors the spiral. So the very first, and I'm just choosing a few lines, the first process, she looks to her ancestors. She looks to her family of origin. She looks to her faith. Again? Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay, sure. And I'm going to move closer so they can see too. Okay, so Psalm 22, the psalmist begins by saying, hey, look what happened to our ancestors. They trusted in you. So this is going to mirror the kind of questions Anne's going to ask. So let me just pray 3 lines. You are holy. You have been praised through all generations. In you, our parents trusted. They trusted, and you came to their aid. To you, they cried, and they were heard. In you, they trusted, and they were not disappointed.
Okay, so partner A, this is going to be the sentence for you. I'll say it more than once. Partner B, you are listening. What strengths do I draw from my ancestors, my family and faith communities? Okay, partner A again. What strengths do I draw from my ancestors, my family and faith communities? Okay, go ahead, partner A. Yes. Okay, thank you, partner A. Now, partner B, it's going to be your turn with the same sentence. Partner A, you're listening. Partner B, what strengths do I draw from my ancestors, my family, and my faith communities? Okay, partner B, we're going to stay with you now. You were just speaking. You're going to speak again. You'll go first this time. Here's the sentence. How have I experienced God in whom I trust? How have I experienced God in whom I trust? How have I experienced God in whom I can trust? Okay, it's your turn with that sentence, partner A. How have I experienced God in whom I can trust? How have I experienced God in whom I can trust? Need to know. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to move now from coming from gratitude into honoring our pain for the world. And I'm going to invite Jean to come and speak the next part of the psalm. And Jean, why don't you just start from the top? So we'll just get it in pieces, but it'll build. So say the gratitude, the first stanzas again, and then just go to the next ones as well.
Okay. The first stanzas were, "You are holy, praised through all generations. In you our parents trusted. They trusted and you did come to their aid. You they cried and they were heard. In you they trusted and were not disappointed." The next phrase, we hear the psalmist speaking in first person about her dilemma. "Oh, my beloved, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far? Abandon me as I groan in misery. Oh, my beloved, I cry by day. You do not answer, and by night I find no rest. Free my soul from this agony, my life from the power of the boar. Yet you are the one who took me from my mother's womb. You kept me safe upon my mother's breast. Upon you, I was cast from birth, and ever since my mother bore me, you have been my strength. Come close to me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help.
Can you put it in the chat?
Karen, are they back yet? Is your group back yet? Read the last one.
Yeah.
They're back in their group? They're back? Okay. So we moved from the psalmist remembering all the trust that the ancestors put in how God trusted. And now the psalmist speaks about her personal life in first person. Oh, my beloved, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far? Why have you abandoned me as I groan in misery? Oh, my beloved, I cry by day, you don't answer, and by night I find no rest. Free my soul from this agony, my life from the power of the boar. Yet you are the one who took me from the womb. You kept me safe upon my mother's breasts. Upon you I was cast from my birth, and ever since my mother bore me, you have been my strength. Come close to me, where trouble is near, there is none to help. And I just want to say the psalmist is not complaining, but lamenting. And those are two different human activities. In lament, you believe someone hears you.
Thank you, Jean. And I wanted to encompass, bring us back to the beginning of that again, because I want to mention that the spiral is not like a linear process. It's something that's a fractal. So we can be in one place of the spiral and experiencing all of it. And it's really to remember that we're enveloped and held by gratitude as we open ourselves to the suffering of our world, which is our suffering. It's not separate from our personal lives and our personal suffering, because we're not separate, right? This work that we call the work that reconnects is about helping us remember who we are, which is part of a living, breathing planet. We're members of the body of Christ, and the body of Christ is incarnate in our planet and in our world. And so we know about the suffering of our world, about the dying of the species, about the dying of the people, about the immigrants leaving countries and dying, being turned away at borders, including our own. We know about the suffering of global climate catastrophe and what it's doing right now. It's not something that's coming, it's something that's here, and who's suffering from it. And it's so overwhelming. And yet we find that if we can be with it and know that our grief is our love, and to lament, to open ourselves to that something arises from us in this third station that we can't know or predict. So now we're going to give ourselves to that moment, just for a moment, with this person you're with, to just let yourself be with some of that experience that you're having all the time. Okay, so I'll let the chat go back to the chat rooms, and we're going to start with partner A. We'll speak first, and here's the first sentence. Partner B, you're listening. Where do I encounter pain and anguish, discouragement and despair? Where do I encounter pain and anguish, discouragement and despair? And again, your personal life is not separate from what's happening to our world. So don't think you have to think in one way or the other. So just where do I encounter pain and anguish, discouragement or despair? Partner A. I'm terribly sorry to stop you. I know you could go on, and really this work is designed for you to hear your own voice because your voice is the voice you most need to hear. So I'm sorry we are constrained, but I'm going to move us now to partner B with that same sentence. Where do I encounter pain and anguish, discouragement and despair? Partner B. I'm going to do one down here, but I don't know how do we tell? How do I tell the Zoom people to get rid of this? Oh, this one. How do I tell them to get rid of it?
Just think Karen will have been used.
Okay.
Are we brought into our breakout room? How do we get to our breakout room again now?
I have to figure that out, Carla.
Oh, okay.
Stay in the breakout rooms and I'll be sending you messages to keep you, caught up with the rest of the group. Now let me see. Okay, there we go. There you go. Bye-bye. So
Oh,
I'm sorry, sorry, Christina, I have to leave and get Carla in here. My mistake. I'm in the wrong place. I meant to send Carla and I sent myself somehow.
Okay.
All right. How do I get out? Oh,
You have to leave the room.
okay, there we go. Thank you.
into the breakout.
I'm trying.
I'll be patient. I'll be patient.
So the psalmist recognizes,
Just see, they're back. Oh, I guess, okay. There.
the psalmist recognizes God as midwife, as giving life, as coming in a point of desperation. And she takes a turn. She takes a turn because she understands that God is present when times aren't going quite right, when nothing else makes sense. And so she prays. She's kind of come to a change in her mind and heart. I will tell your name to everyone I meet in the midst of the assembly. I will praise you. You who are wonder of mystery, give praise. Our loving Creator does not turn away from those who are afflicted, does not hide from them. Their cries are heard, their prayers rise to heaven. She now has come to a great trust and beginning to see with new eyes and new strength.
So we can often have that experience almost of exhilaration when we have a chance to be heard about how hard things are and the suffering that we're experiencing and that we're experiencing in our world. I hope you had a little taste of that now as we move to seeing with new eyes. And we're going to do one sentence. So we'll start with partner A. Here's the sentence. Where and with whom am I being invited into an encounter? And I want you to think about the more than human world as well, because you may be being invited by a redwood tree or some plant in your garden or some body of water somewhere. So where and with whom, human or more than human world, am I being invited into an encounter? Partner A.
Yoo-hoo! Where are you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we'll get him back. Yoo-hoo! Yeah, that's the only way to call. If I could whistle, I'd be whistling. Okay, let's do. Okay. All right, are we back? All right, women in conversation. Are we ready to go forth? Yes, yes. Okay, so before we go forth, we're going to listen to Jean. That's mine. What Jean? Oh, this is yours, I think. Let me move my stuff. That's yours. Jean is going to talk to us a little bit about our being midwives of change before we go forth. Jean? And while we're talking, I just would like to, this is a technical note. So we're going to be meeting for around 15 minutes with our going forth, our fourth station. Then that will be followed by Q&A. And I have to practice what I preach here. When we pass around the microphone, would you keep it as close to your mouth? This is a karaoke style microphone, I understand. If we don't do this, the people on our members on Zoom cannot hear us. Okay, so a little bit of tidbit of information. Okay, Jean, you ready? Somewhere, some notes are floating around, but I got a good memory still. Okay, I wanted to say one thing before I go into Midwives for Change. There's a part in the book of Jeremiah, and this has to do with the earlier station of Lamentations. And he says, call the mourning women, call the women who know how to lament and how to mourn and how to cry, because they are calling the people to the reality of what's happening in the society they live in. They're calling people in conscience to recognize what's going on in the world. And I think that's a very profound role that women, that we can perform at some points. That deserves some deeper thought, but not now. I have another deeper thought. Okay, So I want to say something about Midwives for Change, which is our second subtitle, our subtitle here. And we've already heard that the psalmist said, you've pulled me out of my mother's womb, right? And that you've laid me on her breast. We find the metaphor of God as midwife fulfills an important role in the psalmist's understanding when nothing in her present life makes any sense. Nothing makes sense. And so the only thing she can do is turn to God. Another thing, the midwife occurs in the midst of suffering and despair. So whether it's in scripture or in real life, a midwife appears, call the midwife, and we've seen Call the Midwife. In fact, I think I read there have been 95 episodes of Call the Midwife. Okay. But the midwife appears when death and life intersect. And it's also when the midwife is called, it's a commitment to life, right? We want to help the child come forward. So what we find when we see God as midwife, God is not the benevolent, omnipresent God who suffers with God's people, but is a liberating force, a deliverer for life. So I want to say something about, is anyone here a midwife? No. How many have had midwives? Okay. So as we know, the midwife is not just there to catch the baby. Okay. Though we see that often in the film. But rather, the relation with the midwife can be months of accompaniment. You meet the midwife early on, and she helps you. She watches for signs. She helps you learn how to take care of yourself. She educates you. She mentors you in the time before birth. And then she assists you with birth. Actually, being with the midwife is a very sacred relationship. It's a trust, dealing with mystery, because she is helping you transition from one place to another. I remember my midwife singing to me as she was coaching, singing with me as she says, as you give birth, you are entering into the place where you came from. You're entering into mystery, and you're bringing the child from that mystery into the present moment. You're returning to your place of origin. Now, I have something very embarrassing, but only this congregation would understand it. Only this congregation. I had two midwives. The first one, I'm sharing all these marvelous experiences. She sang with me, walked with me, had a marvelous experience. My second child, I felt my water break at 2:30. I can't wake her up. Is that Catholic or not? Catholic guilt, I can't wake her up. I've been working with her for months. Anyway, I thought that was another learning experience. Okay, so one short story, which you probably have heard. Jenna talked about it years ago. But in the story of the birth of Moses, we hear that it was a time when the emperor said, any Hebrew boy is born, kill him, but let the girls live. So there were two women, Shiphrah and Puah. From their names, they are Egyptian names. So these are not Hebrew midwives. They're Egyptian midwives. They did not want to be obedient to the king, but be obedient to a law greater, which is the law of life. And when Moses lived, the emperor said, well, why did you let the child live? And they said, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian ones. They're robust and they give birth before the midwife arrives. Really clever women. So the Pharaoh's daughter, too, she was disgusted, as I've done research on her father's cruelty. She went down by the river, and when she pulled the child out of the basket, she knew that's kind of where Hebrew people hung out too. Later on, she married a Hebrew man, Mered, and she was named as she became part of the Hebrew community, But powerful, or daughter of Yahweh. So there's a transformation that happens. I do want to say, feminist scripture scholars will note that these women disappeared in the cracks of scripture. While women are generally healers in communities, it is the guys that are doing the healing, even Jesus. Yeah, he did do healing, but there had to be some women who were doing healing too. So I want to suggest, as we enter and encounter our times, that we are called to be midwives. We are called to pay attention to the signs that are given, part of our life, accompany people, accompany situations, accompany groups to usher forth life. And I will say that every speaker that has been invited this coming year has been a midwife one way or the other. So the question is, we have vows to pay. We have vows. And we've all made vows at some point to God, to the living God. And how are we called to live out today? How are we called to be midwife with whom and how?
Stay here. Okay, so we're moving around now, just to review, coming from gratitude, honoring our pain for the world, seeing with new eyes, and now we're going forth. And so we're going to be back in our pairs, and we're going to have one sentence here, and we'll have Jean share the part of the psalm before we go into that.
Recognizes her generations before her. God should be trusted. She laments her personal life. She begins to see with new eyes. Now she goes forth. Oh, you beloved, I lift up my voice in the great congregation. For you promise to remain with those whose love is constant. I will pay my vows to the Lord. The hungry shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek you shall sing praise. This is a challenge for all of us whose kids don't go to church anymore. Let the coming generations be told of the Lord, of the one who abides in all generations, that they may proclaim to the people yet to be born the justice God has shown, and proclaim that the Most High dwells among us. God with us.
So I want to also just mention that when we are thank you. Starts to feel like part of our faces, doesn't it? When we're doing this work and when we're working with seeing with new eyes, we get to be reminded that we're not here all by ourselves. First of all, we have each other and the more than human world, but we also have those who have gone before us. We have the ancestors, the communion of saints, those beloved, wise people who have our backs, and we have the ones who are to come, the future ones. So we want to remember that as we're going forth into our encounter, that we are not alone and that we go forth in community. Okay, so we'll invite the beloveds on Zoom to go into the chat room. We have one sentence here for partner A will begin and partner B will listen. And here it is. What needs to be midwived into our times, and where am I being called to be a midwife for change, to lift up my voice? So what needs to be midwived, and where am I being called to midwife for change, to lift up my voice? Partner A. Partner B, you're listening. Oh, great. Oh, we're away. Wonderful. So we have a couple of minutes now. Not as long as we would like, but we have a couple minutes to hear from a couple people. I want to just mention, if anybody is interested in going deeper with this work, this is a newly revised edition of Active Hope that Joanna co-authored with Chris Johnstone. The subtitle is How to Face the Mess We're In with Unexpected Resilience and Creative Power. And it's very accessible, and there's exercises that you can do. Lots of times people read it together and form a group. I can get you the author's discount if anybody wants a copy of this. So maybe let Jean know and I could get them and then bring them for you at the next month's gathering. Yeah, Chris Johnstone, Active Hope. It's Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone. Okay, so and also Jean can share these questions and the Psalm if you would like to have copies. So just let her know. Okay, who would like to share just anything that's coming up from that time you spent? Anybody? We'll take a couple of comments
I'm a Zoom person.
over here.
And from
Oh,
Zoom.
okay, we'll take one from, we'll go to Zoom next. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? One little thought that came to my mind was it's a comfort to me to realize that my individual woes and aches and pains are not just, I'm not alone in them. And
Mhm.
the fact that you stressed the like the universality of suffering and the fact that we're all in this together is very comforting. And it gives me a new way to kind of think about things.
Wonderful. Anyone else have that experience? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Zoom.
Can I talk now? Can I talk now? Yes, okay. You said in the talking about Joanna Macy's 4 points, you know, there's gratitude, there's seeing with new eyes, there's going forth, but you didn't say there's pain. You said honoring the pain. Could you talk a little bit about why it's honoring the pain instead of there is pain?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, we honor it because we know that it's a part of our human experience, and that as I was sharing about, like, we grieve. The grief is our love. We only grieve what we love. Our outrage and our anger is our passion for justice. Our fear makes way for courage. Our emptiness, our uncertainty, our powerlessness makes space for us to be with things that can emerge that we can't know or predict. So it's just part of our human experience to suffer with, and we suffer with a suffering world. So we want to honor that rather than push it away or deny it or act as if it doesn't exist, because it is actually the sign that we are not separate. So being able to be in this together is everything, right? And so does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I see the battery's running low here. Okay, we maybe have time for 2 more quick comments. I'm so sorry to have to cut this off.
Very easy. Both Brenda and I were very pleasantly surprised that at almost every phase of this conversation, we both talked about the importance of prayer.
Mm.
And we agreed that, it wasn't that nice that we could both come to that along this way in our lives.
Thank you. Pass to Brenda.
What I'm taking away from this is putting it in the power coming from lamenting.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't, I know I've got it as close. Oh, here we go. That to lament is more of a positive thing than to complain. And I think we have to put this in the positive face. And then what you just said, honoring it, putting it as a plus in your life.
Mm.
Now, every plus can turn into a minus if you don't do it the right way. There's that. But I think when you approach people with seeing it as a plus, lamenting, I'm sad, that's not that. In that way, you're not blaming anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It takes it out of the world of blame. And I thank you so much.
Yes, and we noticed too that these feelings move through us. I have a 2-year-old grandson, and he's got a lot of permission to have his emotional experience, and it's so amazing to watch. I'm frustrated, and then I'm happy now, and it just happens quickly. So we can just notice as we are being bombarded with the suffering, coming from all sides, that we can choose to put our attention in gratitude, to know that we're not alone, to know that God is with us, to know we don't have to figure it all out, and let ourselves have the experience, and then it moves through us. Okay, thank you so much for your great attention and willingness to do this work. And I'm sorry to have to cut off further comments, but we're going to keep moving on time here.
Okay, so what a wonderful morning. And we're not quite done yet. And I personally wasn't sure how Anne was going to adapt the spiral to encounter this morning. And I knew for those of you who were here in May, I also, encountered that. And I have to say, this was such a personal for me, a personally transforming practice. I hope it was for all of you too. Just a new insight on how to approach encounters, and along with the Psalms in addition. So it was just a beautiful compilation. So before we get into announcements, Andrea, would you like to read our closing prayer?
When the midwives, Shephrah and Puah, saved the children that Pharaoh ordered them to kill, that was the beginning of the birth time. When Pharaoh's daughters joined with Miriam to give a second birth to Moses from the waters, she birthed herself anew into God's daughter, Batya. And our people turned to draw ourselves toward life when God became our midwife and named us her firstborn. Though we were the smallest and youngest of the peoples, the birthing began. When the waters of the Red Sea broke, we were delivered. So today it is our task to help the midwife, who today is giving birth to a new people. And that was from Rabbi Arthur Waskow's poem, Why Exodus is Not Enough. And in closing, as we go forth, may we tend to the stirrings, the irritability, the nausea, the hope, patience, and work of labor as we midwife with God in our world today. May we bless and encourage one another in the work that is ours to do each and every day.